The easiest way to become a great skateboarder is by learning how to switch your stance. Most people think that switch skating is just something completely different than skating in your strong stance, and it's just not. By learning how to switch your stance, you'll gain a better feel for your feet on the board. You'll gain a better feel for the board itself, all of the different body positions that you can work in. And by proxy, it'll make your strong stance tricks even stronger. But my favorite part is as soon as you stand on the board switch, it opens up an entire bag of tricks. We're gonna cover some common problems that you're likely to run into, some old habits that you might have to fight along the way. So make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss a video from us, and click the link in the description to check out the switch guide and all our other training programs. Step one to get started is I just want you to switch your stance. If you're a goofy skater, you are now a regular skater. Throughout this video, I'll be referring to my back foot as the one that is on the tail and my front foot as the one that is in the center of the board. I think this is useful not only for definition, but it's useful to think about it that way. This is now my front foot. People like to do a lot of mental gymnastics when it comes to switch skating, where they say, oh, now my back foot is leading the way and I'm facing backwards and I can do this. You know, it's just this big game that I don't think it's worth playing. Just switch your stance. I am now a regular skateboarder for the rest of this video. When you take your stance, I want you to focus on a strong standard foot position. So your back foot will be on the tail with just a little bit of space between your toe and the edge of the board. And the same thing with your front foot, except your front foot will be turned a couple of degrees forward. Avoid turning your back foot backwards too much and getting duck-footed. The reason that we focus on the angle of our feet is because of what it does to our hips. If I turn my front foot forward, that facilitates me opening up this front hip. And when I squat, it's easy for me to face my target and look where I'm going. If my front foot is more perpendicular to the board and my back foot gets a bit duck-footed, now when I squat, it's really easy to slip into some bad habits and start facing backwards. When you take a solid standard foot position and you squat, you will feel some differences from your strong side. Mostly it has to do with the actual strength of your ankles and legs. You build all these muscles in your back foot that you probably don't realize that when you're in the bottom of the squat, you can just rely on. But when you switch your stance and you get to the bottom and you really start pushing into your back foot to feel it, you should feel your back leg getting more tired. You should feel tension and flexion in your ankle. You should feel that you can push and pull on the tail, but it just might tire you out a little bit more than usual at first. To solidify this standard foot position, we can turn our hips forward towards our target. You notice what that does to my legs. That naturally wants to bend that back knee a little bit more, which will give it that strong feel up against the tail. Then take a partial squat and hinge forward at the hips, right? This is a great standard body position. We're gonna be using this throughout this video. And I think it's important because of this simple fact. When you look at every great skateboarder, they skate like this, right? I have never once seen someone in their strong stance absolutely blow the skateboard world apart by hopping on and say, hey, I actually think it's better to face a little bit backwards. Check out all this stuff I can do. But that's exactly what we do switch. We hop on the board and start facing backwards, thinking that it's the thing that's gonna take us the furthest. And I really believe that facing forward, just like we would in our strong stance, will give you the most opportunity for improvement. The first thing we want to do is just solidify our switch stance. So take your standard foot position, just like we talked about, take that little squat. While riding forward, just try to take a deeper squat and stand back up while holding the board flat. Meaning you're not turning left and right accidentally when you're bending down. This will happen a lot when your weight is shifting forward and backwards towards your nose and tail, or when you're accidentally rotating your body if you're fighting all those old habits of trying to skate backwards. Let's say you take a good position and then you bend down and now you load this back foot a little bit too much and turn the other way. You can see all that pressure back there starts me turning this way, and now my body and board are fighting against each other. It's pretty straightforward to hop on your board, standing still in a good position. But once you start squatting, it will feel like you have to turn more into your switch stance at the bottom of your squat than at the top. And since you've never practiced this before, the top is gonna feel like you're facing way forward already. So it is a bit of a trip that when you squat, now you have to turn more into it just to hold neutral, but that's just how it works. If I squat back to a regular square stance, this will quickly leak into facing backwards and starting to run into some trouble with holding that switch stance. It'll feel weird at first, but I promise it's a great way to go about it. When you take your squat and you hold the board flat, really feel a lot of tension on your back foot on the tail. We want to start trusting our back foot on the tail. And I want you to treat it like it is the tail. If you hold on to the idea that switch skating is backwards and this is still your front foot and that's still your nose, you're only holding yourself back, because as soon as you let yourself believe that this is your tail now and your back foot is going on the tail, it starts to feel like the tail. It starts to feel like a familiar thing that you've done before. But the first step in finding that familiarity is just believing that your board and your stance have turned around. This right here is your opportunity to recalibrate the way you think about switch skating, okay? This is now your tail. This is now your nose. This is now your front foot. This is now your back foot. Essentially, there is nothing different between this stance and your strong stance. Get that in your head. They are exactly the same. There is nothing different. When you first step on the board like this, it will be harder at first because it's so unfamiliar, but it's the best thing to do long term. So why is this tendency to face backwards while you're skating so strong? It's because of the big bucket things like the foot position you're used to and where you're used to looking. And when you squat, the micro adjustments to your balance and weight placement and the way your hips turn and your upper body hinges, all these things are really ingrained in you. So when you switch your stance, it would make sense that those habits stay the same and want to turn you around to face the direction that you're used to. So if I was gonna brush my teeth switch, I wouldn't just hold the toothbrush backwards like this. I would just use my left hand exactly the same way I use my right hand. It'll feel weird for probably a couple of days or a couple of weeks, but then it will just feel like brushing your teeth. I want you to do everything switch, from picking up your board to throwing down, pushing, and even stopping. When you flip it on its head, it's gonna feel like you're trying to learn how to drive on the other side of the road. You pick your board up with your other foot and it goes into what used to be your backhand, and you don't know how to stride to get a good throw down. In the beginning, it's gonna take a lot of awareness and a lot of discipline, and it's gonna feel like you're a brand new skater, and that's okay. You're a beginner again. This is a good thing. Lean into it, have fun, not knowing how to push, turn, stop, and throw down. Skateboarding is fun to learn. It was fun to learn the first time you did it. It'll be fun to learn switch. We're gonna go over a couple of drills to make sure that you're getting on the board in the correct position, you can hold that position through a couple of different movements, and then we'll really make sure that you're solidifying that position so you're a really strong switch skater. The first drill is do a slow push and a single leg hold. And then set your back foot down on the tail softly. Then take your position. The main part of this drill is setting your back foot down softly, because that forces you to be strong over your front leg, and it will help if you stand taller as you set your back foot down. You notice how I can tap it on the tail very easily before putting pressure on it. When you're setting your back foot down, it helps to look exactly where you're putting it, so you can make sure you get it into the right position the first couple of times you practice this. At first, I promise that back foot's gonna come down heavy with your toes off of the tail. This is what happens to everyone. That's fine. Just get stronger over your front leg. Stand up a bit taller when you go to place your back foot. Look for the spot, then take your position. The next drill is to take a squat and hold the board in a straight line. It's easy to overlook something so simple and to avoid practicing it. But if you think about it, this forces you to get going the right direction. You have to have a good foot placement with your back foot. Get a bend in both knees while you're facing the right direction and not turning front side or back side accidentally. Once you find a good position and you're skating in a straight line, switch the pressure between your front foot and your back foot as you're skating. This will really show you how your new foot position is behaving on the board. The next drill is a static hippy jump, which just means we're standing still in our switch foot position and do a small hippy jump while maintaining the foot and body position. What's likely to happen is as you jump, your feet will want to turn more to a neutral or a perpendicular stance, or you'll want to turn around favoring your strong stance. Really be diligent about holding the switch stance in and out of this jump. Try and land in the same foot position that you took off in. And as always, try and hold the board flat through your squat and your jump. The next drill is tail scrapes. To do a good tail scrape, set your back foot on the tail with your heel off of the end of the tail. But we'll hold our heel in the air so it doesn't go running into the ground. To get your tail on the ground, focus on picking up your front foot and keeping your balance over the center of your board. This is a lot different than shifting your weight over your back foot and stomping it down too hard. If you stomp your tail down too hard or you lean too far back, you end up in a position where you're likely to slip out, or you're gonna slow down too much and start wearing out your tail unnecessarily, getting some razor tail. We just wanna lightly scrape it on the ground to learn some control. The next drill is Tic Tacs. Throughout the Tic Tac, make sure you're holding your foot and your body position intact, and you're pushing off of your back foot to gain speed. A very important part of the Tic Tac is counter-rotating your upper body against your lower body, which means when your front foot swings out backside, your body is gonna go front side. Then you push off your back foot and you switch them. A little note that's quite important, we want our front foot and our front shoulder to be able to disconnect from each other. If you can do this motion where you're letting your front foot swing across and your shoulder open up, you're in a really good position to have genuine balance while skating switch. The next drill is a full swing push. Take your back foot and throw it forward as far as you can. And then as you push off the ground, stretch it back behind you, like you're pushing your heel away from your target. You know, on the Tic Tacs, we separated our front foot and our front shoulder with those motions. with the full swing push, we're gonna separate our back foot from our back shoulder, meaning that foot can swing forward as the shoulder comes back, and then you can stretch and kick it behind you. If you can balance through all of these positions, you are unlocking the fundamentals of switch skating. This drill is not about speed of your push, it's about stability through a lot of different positions. The next drill, we'll be doing wheel hovers. I want you to stand on your tail and then push your front wheels down with your front foot pretty aggressively, and then stand back on your tail. This will teach you how to push on that front foot and create space from the ground, and then pick your front foot back up. This balance position is essentially a manual, or it's the same thing as what might be an ollie, where after you push those front wheels down, when you hold them in the air, you have a lot of tension over those back trucks for a moment. That's the feeling that we're looking for. Right over these back trucks, you can hold it, stand up tall, not let the front wheels touch, and then get back on the tail. You'll have time to set up in this drill because you're just standing on the tail. So make sure you're deliberate about your foot position and your body position. And make sure your wheels do not touch the ground. For the last drill, we're gonna set up in a standard foot position and then rotate our body all the way backside and all the way front side while holding the board flat. Make sure you're not just turning your shoulders trying to rotate. Let your legs move and push your hips around so you can get a lot of rotation in your lower body. So that will teach you just how many different hip positions we can have while skating in a switch stance. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. This stuff is supposed to be useful, not easy. So make sure you're going out there and putting in the work every single day to improve your skating. But I'm not really that good at goodbyes, so make sure you subscribe so I can see you again at the next one.